The concept of unconditional love is explored through a few key scenes in Vinland Saga that you may have missed or forgotten, but this theme ties together both seasons and gives a lot of insight into Thorfinn's development. I'm going to explain the ways Vinland Saga explores the idea of unconditional love and how it is shown in a subtle way all throughout this anime. Before I get into it, I need to go over the other main aspects that make unconditional love relevant to the rest of the story. Themes are undoubtedly a major part of Vinland Saga. Life, death, vengeance, forgiveness, hope. It was all very important to the author to portray these ideas. And this isn't speculation. He specifically mentioned it in this interview.
生きることと死ぬことと愛です。もうこれしか興味がない。興味のあることだけを書いてきています。
All throughout the series, the themes are embedded in every part of the story, and especially in the dialogue where the characters discuss their philosophy. One of the major themes is the hope of moving forward and creating a better life for you and those around you. This is the whole idea of Thor's speech on Vinland, that there is a land away from slave traders and war.
俺たちと一緒にその地で暮らさないか。
Tied in heavily with this is the theme of anti-war, or more specifically, is it ever okay to fight? Is there an alternative? Which Thorfinn has to answer in Season 2. The story ties these themes together so tightly to the plot that it is difficult to differentiate them sometimes. Traveling to Vinland to improve life is a theme about hope, but also literally what the plot is about. This is what makes the theme so powerful and heavily pushed to the forefront of the story without seeming preachy or melodramatic. This is masterful writing. It shows us these themes and ideas, which poses a lot of questions, but never completely answers them. Instead of telling us what we should think, it shows us the character's philosophy that affects their decisions. Then we simply get to see what they choose to do and how it turns out. I already made a video going into more detail about that, but all of what I am explaining here is to lead up to this. There is one concept explored that does pose an answer to these questions, and it is shown in a few key scenes throughout the series. Initially, I did not understand what was trying to be explained, but a few important moments in Season 2 cleared it up for me, and it is a relatively simple concept, but an extremely powerful one. Unconditional love. These words aren't precisely used within Vinland Saga, but the concept absolutely is. It's the answer that Thorfinn comes to at the end of Season 2. But before we get into that, let's look at how this concept was set up and explored in Season 1. In the moments before Canute changes his goals to create a paradise on Earth, a lot of chaos was going on. Askeladd's men betrayed him, and they were chasing down the prince, who was taken away by Bjorn. In the end, their cart was overturned, and Bjorn was fighting to protect Canute. While this is happening, there's a very interesting conversation between Canute and his priest. Although unconditional love was shown in earlier moments with Thor's and the woman who fed and cared for Thorfinn near the beginning of the story, this is the first time the philosophy of it is brought up. Canute laments that with Ragnar dead, there's no one who loves him anymore, but the priest argued that Ragnar did not love at all. He simply discriminated between his majesty and others. This is a harsh assessment, especially as he says death perfects love, because the dead person can no longer do wrong. However, there are a few lines that help me understand this idea. Talking about Ragnar, the priest says, in order to keep you safe, he watched as 62 innocent villagers were killed. Then, explaining common love as discrimination, he makes this comparison. It's no different from fawning over a king while hitting a slave with a whip. I don't think the priest here is speaking for the author, and I also don't think the audience is supposed to completely agree with what he is saying. The priest is living through a very extreme time and is experiencing some truly horrible atrocities firsthand. Later, we learn he is only 23 years old, so it's not like he's some wise old sage either. But the concept is setting up the answers Thorfinn finds in Season 2. If you take care of your family and show appreciation to your friends, but treat everyone else terribly and are willing to destroy them for your own interests, do you really love your family and friends? Is it not just discriminating between people you like and don't like? In the case of this story, having this discrimination style of love is extremely dangerous, because you may love someone, but also cause the death and destruction of others who are human and have emotions and hopes and desires, just like the person you sacrificed them for. It's just like the English and Danes hating each other and being caught in these cycles of wars. This is why the English woman who helps Thorfinn and Thor's are such standout characters, because they showed love to both their family and friends and their enemies. Unfortunately, this world is cruel, and both of their stories ended tragically. But as the priest said, death perfects a person. The idea of unconditional love is made more clear in the second season. In episode 13, Snake reads the Bible to the Old Master, a particular passage in Matthew where Jesus is teaching. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be the sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? If you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Therefore you are to be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect. The idea here is that caring about your loved ones is not good enough. Everyone cares about the people they like. That's normal. Even bad people, even the absolute worst people do that. But loving your enemies and caring about them shows true unconditional love and lets you love those close to you better. Thorfinn listens in on this, and it's part of his development that leads to his important choices in the end of the season. This passage was not just chosen at random. It explains a large part of being a true warrior and sheds light on the phrase, I don't have any enemies. Because he loves both those who treat him well and those who treat him badly. At the end of the series, Thorfinn is able to leave the farm that had enslaved him for years, and escape from Canute, who had sold him into slavery in the first place, and started a battle over only his desire for more money and to hold on to his power. Thorfinn's previous master had just beaten his friend to death, and also chose the worst path for dealing with this conflict. Despite all of this, Thorfinn still saved the farm. He endured the punishment given to him, and doing so even after Almar was ready to surrender. Thorfinn displayed in action the real meaning of unconditional love. He became a true warrior without resorting to violence. He did what he could, doing his best to resolve the situation, but not forcing his solution by turning to violence, which was what he was trying to stop in the first place. The answer given to all these complex and difficult situations where what is right and wrong can never be fully determined is that regardless of your choice, it should be done out of love for everyone, because you are not my enemy. I don't have any enemies. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, here's another Vinland Saga one on the top card. That's all for me. Jam meow.